Hello, hello. All right, then. So I want to focus today on education in tech. So as you have heard, I have a lot of experience teaching in tech. So just to kind of go over quickly again, so I'm a daily at the Commons XR EdTech startup, among other things. I have also been instructional staff for a few data science and data engineering boot camps, but also I was a student for one of them as well, which will be relevant later. Mentored quite a few interns, but other than that kind of more unique background, I have the similar background that most of you have, right? Typical standard engineer responsibilities, such as knowledge transfers, code reviews, stakeholder meetings, pair programming, all the chances where you can teach other people in tech. But what this talk is more about is not just get from point A to point B, from problem to solution, but also take the time to collaborate and understand and try to maximize the output of those things. There we go. So I'm going to start with some of the benefits of teaching, right? We've heard about a lot of these things, right? It motivates learning and deeper understanding. So since you are going to teach a topic, you kind of have to have a good understanding of it. And because of that, you don't necessarily want to regurgitate what you are hearing or saying. You may want to put your own spin or insights on that, so in a way that inspires innovation. There are many ways you can observe your measurable impact on it, right? Both direct and indirect, which again, with some examples I can show you how you can observe that impact. More for the coding aspect, you can, with some of the knowledge transfers, pair programming, or what have you, you can simplify existing processes or code, right? There's a quote right there that kind of shows what simplicity is and a lot of the reasons why we want simplicity in a lot of our processes. And finally, it also does help follow the tenets of the Zen of Python, and you can see some of these select aphorisms from Guido, right? To readable accounts, simple is better than complex, and the last one, of course, if implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. So this scary-looking chart is what's Bloom's taxonomy, which is made by Benjamin Bloom in the 1950s on the educational objects and how the hierarchy to master them. What I want to focus on is on the left side there, right? To kind of understand something, you have to remember it. To efficiently apply it, you have to understand it. You kind of have to go up the pyramid to understand something, right? And to better master an educational objective. The teaching comes in on the upper half, typically, of the pyramid, right? When you analyze and evaluate and you help and apply it to somebody when you're trying to help them understand a topic. A lot of times you have to kind of create your own material, right, that fits them. And so to get to that create tier, you kind of have to go through all of these, right? Which in a way is very beneficial to your deeper understanding on whatever educational object that you are trying to master. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few scenarios that I have had for my personal experience in teaching in tech. And so we're going to start with teaching with domain knowledge. So a bit of a background, right? As you know, I've been data science instructional staff, and there are quite a few data science capstones I had to kind of review, right, and help with. So I mentored in the analytics design, and a lot of the times I understand what's going on, and I even have some domain knowledge in a few things. One of the memorable ones I want to pick is one off of a video game called League of Legends, but all I have to really worry about is it's just has two teams in a real-time game that you have to, has a deterministic outcome that has no ties. Because it's real-time, there's quite a few data you have to pull, but the problem is that the data sets that were open were stale. Right, so the Kaggle community was kind of had a bunch of stale stuff, and so unfortunately it wasn't simple like just grabbing a CSV or Parquet file. You had to actually go and unfortunately integrate with with an API. And so in order to help them, I had to, of course, understand a bit deeper, right? Understand, remember, apply, as we saw in Bloom's taxonomy. Reading through documentation, understanding, oh, something's deprecated, how do we get this, the keys to this table and stuff, right? That experience kind of left me a little bit hungry in a sense. So while I do have some domain knowledge on this, and I have done similar projects in the past, some things weren't quite, to my satisfaction. However, the impact was still measurable, where my students that I did help definitely got certified and, are out to their own careers, basically. So here is a scenario where I became a student, but I can still teach in tech, right? So one of my holes in my career, I realized, was dealing with big data, right? Efficiently creating big data sets with predefined schema. So at my company, a lot of times I define the schema, but sometimes in a lot of places you don't get that luxury. And so sometimes you are very restricted on what you can do and how things have to go and with the rules you have to play with. So that was one of the weaknesses I had. And so to fix that, I took a data engineering boot camp by Zach Wilson. Maybe you may have known him, but he's a prominent data engineer educator. Data Expert IO is his symbol down there. And in there, my memorable experience was when I had a group project with, there was an engineer from Meta and from Amazon, and our project was to make a data pipeline, right, from any data source that we choose. So, of course, I chose the data set that I basically just helped my data science students with, along with the integration with the Bright API. And how I became a teacher despite being a student, because I, of course, provided with my initial findings of what I think should be done. Here are the metrics I think we should use. They still, having the experience on stuff, they would say, I'm not sure about that. They would question me on some things and push back and allowed me to basically either defend really well or understand, maybe I'm wrong there and I'm willing to kind of pivot, right? And so eventually the impact was from that group project, I turned that into my personal project and was awarded one of the top projects of that boot camp. The final one is you can still teach without domain knowledge, but domain expertise, I would say. So for the data engineering boot camp that I was a instructional staff for, there were some extra office hours for the capstone that I held for, right? In there, 3 groups of people came in there, all with differing domains on stuff. And some I had not much experience on. For example, finance, despite liking finance on stuff, I don't quite have the domain expertise in there that some of them did. What I did have, though, was a bit of knowledge as being a data scientist, data engineer, and just knowing how to ask the correct questions. Right, so with my fundamental skills, I was able to say, hey, I'm not sure about this graph. When I apply these filters, this happens. Is this intentional? Stuff like that. And in the documentation, since the audience is supposed to be for people that don't really have the knowledge in this, I was able to basically say, I'm not quite understanding this here, and basically lead them through to tell me some things. And then with what their answers are, I can basically go back and say, I would suggest this. And then with enough questions, I can suggest a bit more deep and say, oh, I would prefer, you probably should apply some streaming here, use this there, stuff like that. And so the measurable impact of that one was one of those students got the top individual capstone and all the accolades that came with it. And so in summary, right, teaching fosters innovation, creativity, and a vibrant community. A lot of the students and mentors that I have taught, I still keep in touch with, and I'm happy to kind of hear their stories as to where they are in their career. As I've said, there are measurable direct impacts, like I've shown over there, or indirect impacts, where you can kind of see, maybe somebody has an influence in the way they code, or what they publish, or even their kind of career interests. And speaking of career interests, that helped me understand, data science is great. However, data engineering being kind of the half that I really also would like to learn a bit more, made it very interesting and really rewarding as well as it'd be very rewarding and fun, right? Being able to understand both sides of the pipeline and understand, here I can get the data from there and, do all the analytics, and then I can basically have the power to, in a way, unblock myself, I like to say sometimes. All right then. Well, thank you very much for attending my talk. And if you have any questions, I'd like to do some hallway questions if you'd like. So, thank you.